Alright, so now I've got this piece completely shaved with the spoke shave until it's pretty much perfectly equal, as if you had done a template bit on it. And I still have my primary joinery marked out, and later on we're going to add some tapers to thin up the top and the bottom. But first we need to chop mortises, put dominoes in, and then we'll taper it off and smooth it out, and the legs will be done. In one of my trial pieces, I messed up which side I thought was the top and the bottom, because this is it's not a mirror image, but it's surprisingly close. So before we move on, I have put a couple of carpenter's triangles on here to help remember which side is mates where. But I want to mark out which side is the top and the bottom. So I'm going to put my template on here, and you'll notice my template joinery spot is not where the piece joinery spot is, so that tells me I'm going backwards. So I'll line these back up, and there we go. So it's pretty easy to get wrong, but here I'm going to write top and bottom, and that will help me remember. And from here I'm going to transfer my joinery spots for my slat mortises, and I'll draw on my domino locations. And I'll throw a clamp on here while I mark out my joinery. I'm using the same center line for my domino joints, so these will determine my outsides and insides, and then these joints get chopped on the inside with this chisel. Okay, so from here, I want to transfer these layout lines. And the way I like to do that is to actually use this square that has this hole here. I'm not sure what that's actually for, but this will give me a nice, so this is a curved piece, so it's kind of hard to trace a straight line unless you have something that can ride on there and help you transfer something that's a connection to this arc. So I'm going to use this, and this will end up being a 1/4 inch mortise. I'm going to draw my start and finish points. And instead of using a marking gauge, I'm going to just use this square to trace where they go. And then I'll use a knife to sever the fibers so it don't get split out. Okay, so here's where I'll have a mortise from my domino, my mortises for my back slats, and then another mortise for my domino right there. So that's one piece done, and I'll make sure I made it right. So on this side, I'm going to draw on my mortise lines. This is slightly different than my original chair because I dropped from a 2-inch mortise down to a 1-inch mortise and tenon. So maybe one day I'll switch this to a domino shape. But for now I'm going to hand chop these and mark out where these are actually getting chopped so I don't mess up. Mortises are so easy to mess up. For now I'm just going to give each of these a tap to show myself the thickness. And What this is going to do is allow me to sever the cross grain. I've got a lot of weird grain directions in this part of the chair. This part's straight, but this part's all angled. So when you start chopping a mortise, you really have to have the fibers pre-severed or you're going to have problems. But this is just to give myself an outline. So now I'm going to take my widest chisel, which is actually an inch, so it should just be just right for these mortises. And you do not want to tap hard with these. So you don't split any grain. And best yet, if you can clamp this to keep it under compression when you're chopping, I'm going to try to remember to do that so I don't split part of the leg off. So just to give you a quick close-up, here's what I've got marked out. So these outer marks are not where my stop and start points are. That's what the black line is. They're just to help me line up that other chisel so I could sever these crooked fibers. If you look right here, you can see the grain is running much more diagonally. And so we really need to sever that or we're going to have some bad tear out. We also don't want it to split, so I have a clamp around it for the one that I'm going to chop first, because this is only about a 1/4 inch away from the edge, and you know, as we chop, one of those lines could just split off or whatever. So this is what we're going to start with. All right, so I have a fairly cheap Narex 1/4 inch chisel. It's quite beaten. And my favorite way of doing a mortise is to start in the middle and do the kind of, I think it's Fallen's View's approach, but alternate from the middle, get to final depth right in the middle, and then work our way out. So I'm just going to give it a pound, turn it around just on the other side, and work a V outward. And I just hit it fairly hard, 1 or 2 times. And I'm not really doing any prying, just a little bit. But I've got a V started there. And probably all the way to full depth already. So I'm going to start working my way back. And change my angle a little bit. So when I change my angle, because I'm kind of having to start a new direction, I hit it a little lighter and tap a little softer. Pry it out. And I'm working back to that black line. So you can see this is my little compressed pellet of end grain that I chopped out. I've got just a sliver left. Look at that. I'll switch to the other side. And similarly, start working my angle to go the other way. And I'm pretty close to my outer line, so I'm just going to chop straight down. And I'm hoping I didn't go too deep, but that's a better problem than or it shouldn't be a problem really in the end. Okay, I think that's about it for that mortise. So lastly, I'm going to take my 1-inch chisel and just kind of clean up those lines a little bit. It wasn't perfectly straight. And these don't have to be perfectly sized either, because this is just where the backrest slats are going to end up going. And these will get sized to fit the holes, not the other way around. So that's my first mortise. I think we're done. I'm going to take a 3mm chisel and just kind of dig out some of that good. So it's not super pretty on the inside, but it's very functional. And yeah, I've got 2 more to go on this leg and 3 more to go on the other leg, but this only took me like 3.5 minutes while talking. So not too bad. And I'll move on to my second mortise, move my support clamp. Start in the middle like I did before. Gentle at first. Switch. A little firmer. Switch. That one's much cleaner than my first. Now, one thing I have to be careful of with these is that this is going to get a taper on the other side, and so I really don't want to dig this one out too deep. These ones can be a little deeper, and they really don't need to be, but it's kind of surprising how fast you get deep when you're chiseling out mortise. For this one, I kind of want to restrain myself and make sure I keep it fairly shallow. Same technique though. You can see my 3 mortises for my back slats on that one side. So now I just need to do the same on the other part. I'll have most of the joinery done on the back leg. All right, so here's my two identical, well, reverse image legs, and this will act as the back slat mortises, and they'll hold together like so, except they will be angled out like this, and these back slats will be steam bent into a curve. And so the next part, as I already marked out, is we need to cut some dominoes. So right here, I'll do a shallow domino right there that will act as the side stretcher, and then the mirror opposite on this one. And then on the inside, we'll cut a deeper one so that the tendons don't intersect. And that'll be our back leg joinery.